Welcome back, everybody, to the third episode of the Wild Faith Podcast. My name is Evan Bungham. I have my co-host, Luke Timmons, with me today. Today, we're going to be talking about family camping traditions, focusing on sharing tips, stories, and experiences related to family camping adventures and Bible connections. Luke, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Sun's shining here in southeastern Minnesota.
Love to hear it.
Yeah, it's
Jealous.
spring.
It is. It's overcast and cloudy today.
Yeah, it's a nice early spring day. We'll take it. It's crazy that it's early March and it's 50 degrees. So, but
It's been honestly, like I think we've said it multiple times, but it is been unseasonably warm this winter in Minnesota. It's been a really bizarre winter.
yeah, definitely not a good year for ice fishing. We'll put it that way.
No, well, I mean, speaking of that, like ice is almost, I wouldn't say it's out, but when do you think ice is going to be out this winter?
I mean, down here in southeastern Minnesota, the question is, what is ice? Because we never really had much ice. I mean, so
That's true.
But yeah, I mean, we went ice fishing a few weeks back. You and I up in Mille Lacs, and we did pretty good. And that was fun. But definitely, we're kind of limited on the areas we could go.
That was the last hurrah for me. I wanted to make it out 2 or 3 more times, but honestly, ice got pretty sketchy up here after that. What was that? Was that the last weekend of February?
Yep. Yeah. So just what do you do? And then now it's crazy. We have wildfires down here, and it's unseasonably warm.
Yeah, and that wasn't there wildfire? That was down in Waseca, right?
Yeah. Yep. So just like an hour west of here. So crazy. I don't know if I can ever. I mean, just trying to think back. Like my dad was on the fire department for well over 10 years in our hometown, and they'd have brush fires and stuff, but nothing like this. I mean, I think they said like close to 2,000 acres got burned up. So
oh, no way.
Yeah, I mean it's
prairie fire. I mean, that's farm country down there.
Yeah, yep. And I think we're still in a red flag warning even today, with just still in a drought from last summer almost. I mean, it was crazy.
Kidding.
Our food plots, obviously, but our food plots last year were not great.
Yeah, I'm praying that we have a wet spring, a wet summer going into fall, because that was you helped me, but it was a last ditch effort to replant everything. I think that last weekend of August.
Yeah, yep. Your brother and I went out that last weekend in August, if not in early September, and just trying to get something in right before a good hard rain, just to get a little bit of some food plot resemblance going. So, but what
do you do? I mean, and that's why I'm okay with the wet spring. I mean, the lakes are down a little bit up here. I mean, you can't tell, but I'm filming in my boat right now, so I'm ready for open water.
Yeah,
and it's gonna be here before we know it.
Yeah, it will be. I mean, and like you hit it there too, is we need some rain. I mean, I've gone out trout fishing a couple times now here in the last couple of weeks, and even just we've done okay. They're a little bit more finicky when it's this time of year, I guess. But 2 weeks ago,
how shallow is it down there?
Shallow, very shallow. I mean, we went out last weekend, my brother and I, and we did okay. But I don't know if I'll go out until we get some rain, because I mean, the water's way down. It's clear, which is kind of cool, because you can
army crawl.
Yeah, exactly. You can see them, but that means they can see you. And when you're fishing basically cow pastures, there's not much of a way to hide from them while you're trying to get up onto the creek. But it's
it's interesting you bring that up, because like it's been when I grew up as a kid trout fishing down there, the DNR really didn't do a lot of work when it came to mowing the trails. Like, that first time me and you went down there last year, we got a chance to see that, like they mowed out that one area completely, which is great for fly fishermen, just being able to have that extended range. But it kind of hindered you a little bit when you're a spinning fisherman, because you got to get closer to the bank. And when you don't have any cover to cover you, especially like now, I mean, it's hard to fish.
Yeah, I mean, when you're casting, eighth of an ounce, spinners, and there's high winds
so far.
Yeah, you're not getting it out too far, especially when it's windy. So it's a challenge like anything. So you kind of learn and adjust, but it's kind of been fun. So Yeah, I mean
Nice.
it's kind of crazy. It's like I said, early March, which means trout opener is a month and a half away, and that means turkey
Turkey
openers.
opener.
Yep, month and a half
That's
away
right.
too. So
And it's Lent.
and it's Lent. Yeah, yep. So
Yep.
we got a few more weeks here before, or a couple weeks, I guess, until Holy Week, and then Easter at the end of the month.
Do you guys have any traditions or anything that you guys do for Easter weekend?
I mean, obviously, always going to church. For Palm Sunday, Good Friday, and then obviously on Sunday. And then now with kids, it's kind of a lot more fun. I'm sure doing the Easter baskets and Easter egg hunts
Oh
because they
yeah.
love that. But I think a important part for me, especially now that our oldest is going to be 4 here this summer, is trying to you know, yeah, the Easter Bunny's fun, but trying to figure out ways to make it, kind of like Christmas, right? It's fun to
Yeah.
get presents from Santa, but there's a reason for the season, and
There's a bigger purpose.
exactly. So trying to, it's kind of funny. We've gone to the fish fry the last few weeks here in our hometown.
Oh, good.
And the first time we went, we're, waiting in line to do the drive through because it was me and the two boys. And I was like,
Sure.
it'd be easier if we eat at home. So we just did the drive through, and we're sitting in line waiting for the food to come out. And Liam's in the back, and he goes, "Did Jesus build that cross? That was outside the church." I'm like, "Well,
Yeah.
no." I'm like, impressed that he has kind of put that two and two together
Yeah.
there. And then he's like, "Well, Jesus died on the cross." I'm like, kind of my head snapped back. I'm like, "You're 3.5 years old. What?"
Yep.
And so he's like, "Why?" And then, because that's every toddler's favorite question is why.
Yeah.
So, trying to, it's kind of a challenge, I guess, especially when they're that young, is figuring out a way to explain it so that they can understand, but like not completely scare them,
Yeah.
because
Well, yeah.
yeah, because obviously he dies for our sins, and, trying to figure out a way to, yeah, explain it to a 3.5-year-old is interesting, but it's fun.
Yeah,
It's
and that's some of our duties as parents of, getting our kids involved in the church and just that understanding. And, it's
hmm
hard, just from a parent's perspective, like you were saying, just trying to get that message across in the right way that they can kind of catch on to it. But man, it's fun listening to your kids kind of go through that little faith journey that they're on. Like my
hmm
daughter, every once in a while, will be like, yeah, we'll go to church, and she's like, yeah, we're gonna go see Jesus. It's like, yeah,
hmm
that's awesome. And then she'll be, she has this little cell phone that she has, and she'll pick up the phone. She's like, I'm gonna call Jesus. It's like, okay, yeah. So
That's
it's
funny.
definitely fun and an exciting time. For me, I'm getting confirmed
Yeah.
on Easter Vigil, so I'm excited to go through that and finally take that step through the church.
Yeah. So walk me through, what is I know we've talked a little bit offline here, but kind of walk me through that process from when you initially decided to go through RCIA, and then, kind of leading up now
Yeah,
here in the last couple of weeks before you're confirmed.
we started in September. We have a really awesome program here in Brainerd, Minnesota. It's called the Fuse program. So it's a 3-step program,
hmm
which is actually separate outside of RCIA. We have our own individual group we meet before we meet as a Fuse group, but it's basically it's an awesome 3-level Bible study group. And they do a phenomenal job with it. I'll still never forget the first night in September when I walked in there, and we had, it's either September or October, I can't remember, but I walked in and there was about 450 people,
Wow.
just in this little church, just a mix of young people, old people, and, just to see that many people that are eager to learn more about God, it was incredibly moving, and just really helped just kind of know that I was on the right track and I was doing the right thing.
hmm
And we've met every week, every Tuesday we meet and we go through and kind of learn everything. So I'm getting confirmed in the Catholic Church. Like I said, it doesn't make a difference who's listening. If you're Lutheran, if you're Catholic, if you're Presbyterian,
Yeah.
like I said, we're open to all denominations. We're just all about Christianity in general. But
Yep.
I just kind of felt my faith aligned more with the Catholic Church. My wife's Catholic, the rest of her family's Catholic, and just kind of believed what the church was saying. And
hmm
it's been fun. I've learned, the last, 4 or 5 months now, I've learned more than I've learned in the last 31 years of my life in the
Yeah.
church.
No.
And they get confirmed on 3 Saturdays from now. I'm really excited.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah, it was cool to sit. I know we were talking about earlier about coming up ice fishing a couple weeks, 3 weeks back, but I think we definitely kind of painted lit the midnight oil. But it was, it was in a
It
good
was
way.
good though.
It wasn't in like
Yeah.
a crate getting rowdy and crazy. It was just, I mean, we sat around the
No.
fire and just talked about God and Jesus and our own faith journeys and how to navigate that now that we're trying to raise a family too. So it was cool to do. It was fun.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. That was it's always good when you get a chance to talk about God, especially just understanding, you and I are best friends, but just we
Mm-hmm.
didn't get those opportunities. I look at like what we do at Fuse, I get to meet all different people, walks of life, hear their stories and just how they came to faith. And, it's inspiring because we kind of get caught up in our own journey. And, we have our own troubles and stuff that we feel like we go through, and we don't really, you kind of get fixated on that. You don't really get a chance to look out and see what other people have gone through. We
Mm-hmm.
always try to measure ourselves, but just being able to hear other people's stories is it's really inspiring to your own faith journey.
No, definitely. It's kind of just nice too to kind of broaden that community too that you have access to if and when you have questions, you have more contacts to reach out to and just kind of help walk through life together a little bit.
No, 100%. And,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of brings us into our guest of the day. So I'll give him a little bit of an intro here. Ron Murray is a dedicated outdoorsman, devout Christian, father, grandfather, and is well respected within his local community. Ron has been a huge inspiration and support in my faith journey and has touched the lives of many others. He's a local celebrity here in central Minnesota and is the current mayor of the wonderful town of Staples. And if you haven't figured out yet, Ron is my father-in-law. He's my fellow golf partner, and I couldn't be more excited to have him on the podcast. So without further ado, let's welcome in Ron. And this bit for us is pre-recorded, so we're going to go ahead and jump right into our interview with Ron. So looking forward to sharing this with you guys.
Absolutely.
Ron,
Hey,
welcome aboard the first episode. You are our first guest on the Wild Faith podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I'm honored to be here as your first guest. We'll look back when we're big and successful and look at this first episode of a guest, and we'll just be proud as punch, right? No, I'm doing great. I'm excited to be part of this and share my faith and just watch this grow. So it's really cool.
Well, good. Well, we are excited to have you on. We've been, this just goes to show that we're learning as we go on here, because I think we've recorded this twice now for our intro, because the first time we didn't hit record and the second time we had technical audio difficulties, but we're live now. So
Awesome.
we're going. So today we just kind of wanted to bring you in. We wanted to get all your wisdom and expertise, and Luke, take us off if you want to dive into the first couple questions we have.
Yeah. So, I mean, like today's obviously, like, the episode is focused on, family camping tradition. So, Ron, just kind of give us a little, insight, I guess, on how you've built some stronger family bonds, through nature and some tips and strategies for doing that through camping.
Well, I'd like to start off just by saying that I really didn't do much camping as a youngster, which is when I sat down to get ready for this this podcast, it was really amazing. And I just quickly, God does some really interesting things, and he brought me here today and brought me to reminiscing over my years, and it was interesting. I didn't do any much as a kid, but
Really?
yeah, my mom, we had 8 kids in our family, and my dad worked shift work, and we didn't do a lot of camping. We did hunting and fishing, and we hunted a lot. But then when I got out of college and got married and started having kids, that's when I really started doing camping. And the only exception to that would be I did some camping in college, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But what I came to realize was bringing my family and my friends into that environment was so special, because you get away from everything and you're surrounded by the people that you love. And it's usually a smaller group, except for one example I'll tell you a little later. But and you're away from everything,
Yeah.
and you're focusing on each other, and you're focusing on the experience, and that's the way you build those strong bonds.
Oh,
as
most definitely.
as opposed to being in a
And you guys
large group.
lived up in the falls, right?
Yeah,
Or
so
maybe just give us that. Let's run through that intro again.
Well,
Kinda give
I-
us a little bit of an intro of where you're from and just kind of a little bit of a backstory
Sure.
so we know who we are.
Yeah, so born and raised in International Falls, Minnesota, on the northern border of Minnesota, and about 31 years ago, migrated to tropical central Minnesota to for my career. But I make a lot of trips back up north to enjoy the outdoors, primarily.
Magical place.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. But up the lake and then out up into the woods up there. But I came down here for my career and have settled down here, and
And you're the mayor.
I'm the mayor of Staples, Minnesota. That's where I currently
Beautiful
live.
place.
Yeah, it's a fun little town, just 30 minutes west of here. But yeah, I'm down here, and I've got two of my kids living close by and their families. So it's become home for me, and it's where I hang out.
Oh, love it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Definitely. I mean, I think you hit on a key piece there too. Is just building that quality time you get with that, your little cohort of whether it's family or friends, and being able to kind of separate away from the rest of the world in God's nature.
Yeah, I went out camping with some adults that I befriended when I moved to Staples, and their kids, and that built relationships. I've had those relationships now for 31 years, and so their willingness to invite me along and to take me out, was a blessing. And once again, you're talking about small groups and tight relationships that are built for long periods of time over these activities.
Yeah, most definitely. And
You know.
I mean, the one funny line I guess I have is my one word of advice is always bring a bigger tent.
Yeah.
Always bring a bigger tent.
I've learned the
Well-
hard way with that.
Yeah, we didn't bring big tents, and that was because the people I went with packed very light. Woo, we packed light, especially in the BWCA, and so we had tight quarters for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I don't know. For me, I mean, I think the biggest thing is just it's such a unique opportunity to just get your family, your friends together. You're away from the hustle and the bustle of life, and you get a chance just for quality one-on-one time with one another without any distractions. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that's why camping for me with my family and friends through the years has just been a blessing, because it's just that opportunity to disconnect and just kind of be at peace.
Yeah, and camping isn't for everybody.
True.
There are people.
There's lots of different types of camping.
There
too.
are
There's
a lot of
glamping. There's
there is.
tenting. There's you can name it. There's a lot.
Yeah, the word camping is used liberally. I think when I think of camping, I think of hiking in the woods and putting a tent up and having a campfire and eating out of a food bag and those kinds of things. So, but what I meant to say is that I'm blessed that I was involved with people and raised kids who wanted to camp and enjoyed camping. That isn't always the case, and some of that came from me, and some of that came from their friends, and so it all falls together. And once again, I think it really makes a person blessed
Oh, for
to
sure.
have that.
And I mean, so just give us one specific story that you can think of, from a camping tradition that kind of holds close to your heart, that has some significant meaning, that's been passed down through
Yeah.
generations. I mean, can you think of anything? I mean, like I can think of the shack or the
Well-
cabin. There's a lot of stuff, I guess.
I mean, I've been around this earth for almost 62 years, so I got a
You're
lot.
young, man.
I got a lot of stories I can tell. But as far as camping is concerned, it's interesting. I've got two things that come to my mind. The camping that I did in the Boundary Waters canoe area, has implanted memories in my brain that I'll never forget. And the stories I think about some of them are perseverance, and some of them are treacherous, and some of them are just outright brutal, because my son took us on 22 portages. His best buddy took me and his dad, and I think they were going to try and break us. We did a loop. I don't remember the particulars, but we did a loop, went up, came around, back down, and I think it was 22 portages. Some of them no longer existed, but we
boy.
still did them.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and it was tough, and we even tried to run some rapids, and we tipped over a canoe.
Did you guys have at least aluminum canoes, or did you guys have like the Kevlar?
No,
like,
they were aluminum.
okay, that's
Yeah,
nice. Those
yeah.
you can shoot them through the rapids a little bit.
I still off and on, and probably will now after this podcast, reminisce with my son about what he put me through. But once again, it's a memory that
Mhm.
that I
I'll never
I have.
forget.
I'll never forget. But the Boundary Water Canoe area and is just so magical. It's tough. It builds perseverance. It's not for everybody, but those are some of my fondest memories as far as the camping experience. And who I went with. I went with my two boys, and I went with their dads.
How old
and
were they when you guys went?
oh man, maybe 10,
Okay, yeah,
12, something around
we've
that
talked
area.
about that in the last, I think, the first 2 episodes. Even just what is the right age to go to Boundary Waters? Because
Right.
both Luke and I's kids are young, and I don't think I'd want to send any kid probably under the age of 7
Oh,
up there.
Yeah,
But it's definitely like, man, we'll talk more about it, but what a great opportunity just to kind of explore an adventure and just
yeah.
fail and go through perseverance.
Yeah, I
and,
mean, I think there's a safety factor, maybe. I don't know. But I mean, you want to have them be able to enjoy it, and you want to be able to have them contribute to
True.
the trip, I guess. But, I'm sure there are a lot of people that take young people up there, young people to get them experienced and to have them begin to grow to love that particular thing. And so I think it depends on the people taking them up there, right?
Yeah.
It depends on their experience.
Yeah.
I mean, when I went camping, I relied on other people's experience when I first started camping because, like I said, I didn't camp a lot when I was younger, but I relied on their experience and then grew a little bit in my ability to do things, and then took off from there and went out on my own. Just circling back to memorable experiences, it's an interesting. I have a camping trip that I've been doing for 14 years down to Rochester area.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
it was with my wife's family. They had a tradition that they had been doing several years before that. It had to do with their father and their father's homesteaded land that got turned into a county park. And there's some pretty strong traditions.
They own that land?
They used to homestead it,
Really?
and they donated it, or
Where's that at again?
it's down in Olmsted County, and it's just outside of.
Luke, you would know what park that is. It's
What is the
name?
for crying out loud?
Now we're gonna forget it.
Yeah,
It's man, what is it? It's right by
Chester Creek,
Yeah, right by
Chester
right by
Woods,
Fleet Farm.
Chester
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Woods.
Yep.
It's Chester Woods County Park in Olmsted County, and we've been going there for, like I say, for 14 years, and it's got a lot of traditions. My father-in-law, who was the original homesteading, or his father was, he used to do a little preaching to all of us. We'd all have to we'd all sit around the picnic table, and he'd give us a Sunday sermon, and we prayed over all our meals, and we prayed for each of the days. There was a real good traditions around that. And then my wife and I went with her brother and their family to church on Sunday. So we'd get up Sunday
Awesome.
morning from the camp, and we'd get ourselves ready in our Sunday best, and we'd drive into Eota. Is that how you
Yep.
say it?
Yep.
Eota, and we go to mass, and then of course we'd get donuts and bring donuts back to the campsite. So yeah, and we've been doing that for 14 years. But a lot of just a lot of good family bonding and good memories there, and a lot of people though. Probably 20,
Gosh,
at
you
least
guys
20
had that
people.
many people there?
Yeah,
Oh wow,
a lot of people, family found that to be very important to
Fun.
be there. So
fun.
Awesome.
so those are probably two of the big memories that I have.
I think both those stories kind of circling back, to the one you just told too, is I think a good Bible verse that kind of pops up in my head is Joshua 24:15 that says, but as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. So, I think taking that time while you're camping to just appreciate where you are and why you're there, and the ability to be that, be out in God's country, I think is just so cool. And then, circling even back to that first story too, is I think, 22 portages, that's crazy. But it's like
I don't think I've ever done that many.
no, but I mean, I think you build, through those challenges out while camping out in nature. I think that just builds your, the bond between who you're out there with, whether it's family or friends. And, one memory that comes up for me is just this past May and June, we went and drove out to Yellowstone with my family and then my parents, and we both rented camper vans and drove all the way out there. I think I put in, I put in like 3,000 miles in like 10 days. But the one key little memory in there that sticks out for just kind of building that familial bond and while you're out doing this stuff is we hiked out to this suspension bridge, and it's, it wasn't too long of a hike out. It was maybe a mile or two out and then another, obviously, mile or two back. And there's some switchbacks, but nothing crazy. We got down to the bridge and it was hot and it was just beautiful. The kids ended up falling asleep in the packs. And as we're walking out,
oh, it's perfect.
Yeah, but as we're walking out, we just saw black clouds just storming in, and we got maybe a quarter of the way back out, and it just started like little knives raining sleet just right in our faces. The kids are screaming.
Oh boy.
And we're just like, and all I can think in my head is we're in the middle of bear country and we have two kids that sound exactly like a wounded animal screaming. So like the whole way out, I'm just like, we have to just put knees to chest and get out of here. You know what I mean? And we ended up nothing, it was completely fine, but stressful situation. But I remember the first thing that happened when we got back to the camper van, got Liam off my back, and my dad just came up and gave me a huge hug, and it was just like, we did it. It wasn't like some crazy, super long hike out, but it was just, those memories of coming up and through those.
Well, you persevered and got through it, and you made it
exactly. So I think, there's so many things that while you're out in God's country, you're able to just strengthen those bonds, whether it's camping, hunting, fishing, and just testing you and just keeping you, faithful and honorable.
Yeah, it keeps you grounded.
Yeah, definitely.
You think about having the kids go out in the woods and get a stick to make for putting the hot dogs on and marshmallows. It seems like such a little thing, but they're learning basic skills, and they're carving the stick, and they're getting the food ready,
Mm-hmm.
and all those little things that you don't really think about that are basic skills that they're learning.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, this is kind of an interesting question, and we can kind of go a little bit round table here with it just from a different perspective. But I mean, Ron, so as time's kind of gone and passed, like, just give me a little bit, like, how have you navigated between like unplugging between technology with family and camping, with camping trips, and still capturing, preserving like memories,
Well, we didn't have cell phones. And I don't even know what we had for cameras. We might have had one of those cameras that you
have some of those Kodak cameras, didn't you?
Well, yeah, we had cameras that I'm trying to think if it was so long ago that we had film camera. I think we had cameras that had the SD cards, or what do you? Yeah.
Well, you guys have one of the coolest. I mean, that's like, so up at the shack in Ray, Minnesota, they have one of the coolest picture walls I've ever seen from a family hunting tradition. I think we can overlay it. I think I have a pretty cool snippet of that, but they talked about having stories and memories. There's a whole entire board with hundreds of photos.
I mean, okay, so we're talking about camping. I mean, when I think about camping, like I said, I think about bringing a tent out in the woods and kind of a campfire. But we had a deer camp, and
two, or is it 2 or 3 through the years?
3 deer camps through the years, yeah. From 1950, about 1950
give us
to
that story. That's a good one.
So, as far as the deer camp is concerned, 1950 is when it was started, way back when, and there was a small group of guys that hunted. My dad, at the time, my oldest brother asked him if he'd take him deer hunting, and my dad had no clue what to do. I don't think my dad even owned a gun at that time. This is a long time ago. So this is my oldest brother, and he brought him out there. Had a friend who brought him out, introduced him to him, and he started hunting, driving out there because the cabin they had was just a small little 1-room cabin that had mink and mice and stuff that lived with them. And then they moved a house out to the hunting property back in '66 or something like that, and then that's when my other brothers were able to come out because they had more sleeping room, and I actually started then too. And then about 15 years ago, we had a big blowdown, and we were able to build a new hunting camp. That's been around, so that's the third one, but it's been around for 50 years. So over that time, we've taken a lot of pictures from Polaroid, the kind where you have to wait for it to come out, and slowly become black and white to all the technologies that we have now, and that's what we put inside that board, But I could talk for hours about all those different stories that we've got going on,
Luke, do you got anything in mind you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, I think, with any trip, if it's camping or if it's, going to deer camp and stuff like that, it's the people that make the memories, right? Or it's the land, the nature that makes them. So it's taking that, time. And I think this kind of perfectly segues kind of what we wanted to talk about next, is just kind of exploring some of those biblical themes, whether it's trust or gratitude or reliance. We've hit on a couple of those already, but, just taking the time away to just appreciate what you're doing. Right. So it's, you want to, like for you and I, Evan, especially liking to take pictures and photography and stuff, you want to take as many pictures as you can because you want to, have all these sweet pictures. But at the same time, there's a lot going on around just, the lens you're looking through. Right. So it's just like, with like the last trip, it's like my parents bought these little, we called them buff knocks. So these little binoculars that had a plush buffalo around it. So, they got them for Liam, and it was just so funny. I'm trying to take all these pictures of these, this huge bison herd and getting these sweet pictures. But then it's like, you kind of just look over to your right or left, I guess. And,
that's cool.
And you just you're watching, your kids and your family just enjoying nature. And I mean, that's I think where you can just take those mental snippets or those mental pictures and just, have something in your own head to just refer back to that's just for you to remember and enjoy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can kind of go off on that a little bit, and I'm sure we'll talk about the cabin here in a little bit up in International Falls out in Voyager. But, the funny thing for me, talking about unplugging and reconnecting is, I'm the photographer, videographer of the family. I feel like I've always been handed the job of the one taking photos, but it's kind of funny because, I do it for a living, and I think I hit a point probably about 5 years ago, I kind of same thing with like filming all my hunts and stuff where I got burnt out because I was missing, being in person in reality because I was living too much through the lens. Super cool looking back at it now, all the photos and stuff and videos that I've taken, especially up on our family vacations and stuff, which has been really cool. But there's definitely a balance there that I found with myself of trying to, enjoy it, but still capture those moments. But that's
a big difference, in the generational you talk about.
For sure.
We had the ability to take photos, but it didn't surround our every thought because we didn't have the ability to do what we can nowadays. And I think we took more time to just absorb what was going on and used our mental picture and the memories. So, I have a picture of something that I can look back and remember, but I also have that mental image in my brain. And unfortunately, when I kick the bucket, that'll go. But that's why we pass them on. That's why we pass them on in the generation down. And we pass them on from generation to generation, and we try to do the oral tradition or the oral history as much as we can as well.
So kind of going off of that, so Ron, do you have a time or a challenge or a situation that took an unexpected turn in events, during like a family camping trip, whatever it was, if it was up at the shack or if it was out west or if it was up at the cabin, that really just kind of strengthened you. I mean, you kind of touched a little bit maybe with that, going through shooting the rapids and stuff, but just give us like another story that really kind of strengthened that bond between you and the family or friends that you're with, if you can think of a story.
Well, we did have a really bad storm that happened on one family camping trip up in Voyages National Park, which is a national park that's all water. You can only navigate it by boat. And we were up there. There was a pretty big group of us who probably had 3 boats. And as what can happen up there is a really bad thunderstorm came through, and it tore up the place. My boat got swamped, and our tents got tore up, and you know, it was scary. But at the same time, I mean, there were guys up there that they had a boat, but they don't ever use. I mean, it was a lot of inexperience, and we all came together. We got the boat unswamped. We got the camp put back together. We sort of huddled while the storm was going over. I mean, I don't know that if we sit around and talk, that we would definitely reminisce about that necessarily. I mean, maybe we would, but if we did, I think we would talk about how that was scary, but how everybody came together and we got everybody safely and got our equipment back and everything. And as I was getting ready for this, I actually thought about that. That was a pretty scary moment, and we had to come together as a group. I'm sure I said a few prayers at some point during that event, because I mean, it was scary.
Well,
sure.
Since you brought up the cabin, can you give us just a little backstory on that? Because that's a pretty cool little piece.
So I don't consider this camping, but it is our Rainy Lake cabin, and it's pretty special. But we stumbled across a 2-acre island up in Rainy Lake, and my brother was instrumental in getting that. And then my other brothers, so there's 5 of us that are in on this cabin, and we've just slowly built it up and used it. But it's really an oasis. It's really, as far as getting away. I mean, we can text and we can get some phone calls now. Over the years, the technology and the ability to communicate has gotten better, but it is definitely getting away. It's 14 miles by boat. So you don't usually forget stuff, but if you do, it's a bummer because you got to go 14 miles back to get it.
Oh gosh.
But once you get there, it's pretty isolated, and you definitely unhook from stuff, and you definitely can just get away from everything for sure up there. Oh, it's pretty special.
No, that's awesome. So I have a story that kind of falls into that. And Luke, you would know very well with this. And we really haven't talked a lot about hunting yet, but I have a camping story for the ages. So this was, I believe, 2 years ago out West River, South Dakota. And we had the bright idea that we wanted to go to a piece that I've never been to before. It's by Lake Owai or Lake Ojai. People, I get it wrong every single time, so feel free to correct me. Because
Wolf's gonna laugh at you.
And he's laughing right now. But anyways, so this giant piece of public, which is like, I don't know, it's got to be like 15,000 acres. It's starting to shrink through the years because the farmers or the ranchers buying his land back. But what we decided to do, I've never been to the tip before, so I was like, let's just make this quick 7-8 mile hike in. We'll camp in there because it's BLM land, and so we make the journey through there, and we get, we probably left at what is it, like 3 o'clock, maybe 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So we had maybe like 2 hours to get back there, which was horrible timing. So by the time we got about halfway through there, we ran into, I want to say, about a head of probably 500 cattle.
Oh, man.
And so I'm assuring Luke and his brother Noah that there's no bulls in this group. And then we're about halfway through them. It's, when you've got a group of maybe like 50, 60 head of cattle, it's not that intimidating. They kind of work around you. But when you got like 400 cattle, it sounds like a thunderstorm and the ground shaking, and it's crazy.
Wow.
But the funny part, I look at Noah, I'm like, there's no bulls in here. And he looks over and he's like, well, that one's got pardon my French, but he's like, that one's got a big pair of nuts. And it's like, well, there's a bull. And so we navigated through the cattle. We ended up hunting for, I think, 2 days it was. And then we decided to stay, we want to stay one more night. Well, we had no service out there, and we pitched our tent, thank goodness, in the good spot that we did. and I think we end up getting, oh, I don't know, 4 inches of rain that night. We woke up that morning, everything was soaked. We decided
Drenched.
just to bail out early, drenched, and we ended up, I think, walking. Oh, it had to
7,
be
8
like
miles.
8.5 miles because
Yeah.
well, no, because we had, remember,
Wow.
we ran into the rancher and he told us we had to walk around his fence line, so that added it in
Yep.
like another 1.5 or 2 miles. Good news is we did get in a stock, right afterwards, but that was definitely a test, I think, for you and your brother on just sheer not wanting to kill one another because of we were absolutely soaked. Our packs weighed probably an extra
Mm-hmm.
50, 60 pounds. And then not only that, that next night when we got back to camp, our dry setup that we had, I think we ended up getting another 3 inches of rain and then some snow. And then we woke up that next morning and everything in camp was just
Oh
absolutely
man,
soaked.
miserable.
And keep in mind, I
So-
didn't say when this was. This took place in November, middle of November, right before the rifle season kicked off. So it wasn't like it was 75 and sunny. It was about 30. It's kind of like what it is outside right now. It's actually pretty cold. We were just saying that, but it was like a balmy 35 degrees. So,
Yeah.
for me, that was definitely a camping experience where it was, we had to persevere and we had to get through it. And, it kind of brings me to a verse I wanted to say earlier, but Joshua 1:9, he says, "Be strong of good courage. Do not be afraid nor be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." I know that, that one speaks to it a lot because I think we definitely said a lot of prayers. It tested us in lots of different ways, but, we're better for it now. I feel like I can conquer anything out in the West besides the mountains. I haven't done that yet. So,
Well, I think camping helps gain courage in other ways
Yeah.
of life too. When you're young and you're being led by somebody older, whether it be a father or an older brother or something, you've got to rely on them and you've got to become courage. And then if you're the leader, you also have to have courage to be able to lead this group of people. And I've experienced that in my camping trips, BWCA and up at Voyagers for sure.
no, that's a good one.
Definitely. So, I mean, I guess the last kind of piece we want to talk about too is just some, like with Ronnie, like you talked about having a large, family with your brothers and sisters and whatever, but, and now grandkids and kids and everything else. So what are some just, even if it's just one, tip to go off of with camping, like what's just that one thing that like sticks out in your head? Like if someone was like, what is your number one tip for you to think that camping trip was successful?
Well, I wasn't always the best at it, but I think being patient and not worrying about it being perfect,
Yep.
You're gonna the best laid plans don't always work out, and letting it happen, and letting the things that maybe weren't part of the plan or maybe didn't go well, let them happen, because you know what you're going to do. You're making memories, and sometimes when things don't go well and you flub up and maybe are frustrated, when you look back at it, it might be one of your best memories. So I wasn't always the best at it, but I think looking back, that would probably be an important tip.
Yeah.
From the wisdom of a guy who's 62.
I'm trying to think of something for me.
That's good advice.
I mean, it's great advice. I mean, I think my biggest one's bring a bigger tent. But
well, for
no,
you,
I'm
because you
definitely-
pack
and I
like a
think-
pack rat.
Yeah, well, Luke knows me very well, and I think we said it in the last podcast. I'm like my dad, where I literally will lay every single thing out. I will cover the size of the deck that we're filming on right now with my stuff, just to make sure I know where every piece is. And I'm super OCD when it comes to packing and
Yeah.
camping, so I make sure I've got double, triple of everything, because I couldn't tell you how many trips I've been on where it's, well, I forgot a headlamp. It's like, well, all right, well, I got an extra headlamp for you, or you forget an extra.
I've been out with you, and I noticed that you carry a lot of supplemental stuff. I'd love to see you in the BWCA. You wouldn't get very far with my crew that I went with. You wouldn't be bringing 3 lamps, I don't think. But of course, if I forgot mine, I'd be dang glad you brought it.
Well,
Right?
we would be sad. Yeah. No, I've learned a lot through the years of packing too light, and there's a fine line. You know, it depends on what trip you're going on. If you're going
Yeah.
to Boundary Waters or out west, where you pack too much stuff, or you pack too less of stuff, or
Yeah.
but you know, I think when it comes to for Luke and I, we're really just kind of getting in the realm of finally having the opportunity to take our kids camping. So I can't really say that we are experts like you, because it's a whole entirely different realm when you start leading young men, young women out in the field. It's a little bit different when you got like age, same age people or older people that you're with.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, you won't think of everything, but you do definitely have to widen your scope. I mean, you're not thinking about yourself, right? I mean, and if you're going out with a buddy, and you're going camping, you're thinking about yourself. A little bit selfish because you want to cover your back, but when you start to include your family or whoever
Yeah.
else you're taking out there, you have to broaden your horizon. You can't be as selfish. I mean, and that's another good trait that I think a faith-filled man needs to think about too.
Yeah. And I mean, so this kind of takes me into the next question. And, like you've given us a lot of really good stories just from your past and, what you've kind of got coming up for this summer. I know we're going to have a lot of fun camping trips, but can you just tell us like the importance of having like intentional quality time spent together with family during camping trips and just how that kind of just strengthens your overall dynamic?
Well, I wrote down one word when I thought about this, as far as camping, and there's probably more than one thing, but the one thing I wrote down was campfire.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Campfire. That's a legendary word.
I mean,
Legendary word in my world.
those two things are inseparable as far as I'm concerned. So I don't know if I've ever been on a camp trip where there's been a fire ban. I think there's been a trip or two when the fire ban was either in place or the fire had to be very small. It was very unfortunate because the campfire for me is the place where you gather, you talk, you, depending on who's there, you let loose, share, you open up, you become vulnerable. I mean, I think about my camping trips, and there are a lot of memories around that fire, and so for me, that's probably
It's a good one.
that's
That's
it for
actually the
me.
cover photo for this podcast is of a campfire. I believe my sister-in-law, Erin, yourself, and me are in the background of it up at the cabin. It's a cool one. But
Yep.
yeah, no, I can't. That campfire, that's a great one. I mean, that's in spirit of the old man. I've had many's and many, and we've howled at the moon many's of times, Luke and I and my dad, and I couldn't tell you how many campfires that we've had. And
Does he make a small fire ever?
no, giant. I mean, you can see this oak tree behind me that's about 15 feet high. That's about the average height of flame for each fire that we had. So, but that's a really, really, really good one.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Yeah,
I think that
kind of.
I think that is that's the bonder. Go ahead, Luke.
Oh, sorry. I didn't want to cut you off there. No, I just wanted to go back to on your one tip about just kind of accepting what's gonna happen and rolling with the punches. I think one thing that I've tried to do, especially lately, is kind of pray the serenity prayer. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot, the courage to change the things I can, the wisdom to know the difference. And I think for me personally, that's been a kind of a big eye opener. Is not having such high expectations and just enjoying that moment. Like when we were in Yellowstone, we were camping in the Madison campground, and like Liam was throwing rocks into the river, and we're just having a good time and just slowing down. And then all of a sudden we look over to our right, and there's just this herd of buffalo coming at us. And there was probably we went up the bank, we got away from them, and we got some cool pictures. But we just watched like 100 buffalo just stroll right by the river, and it was just such a cool thing to see. And I think
Wow.
just referring back to Christ especially, and is the amount of time that he took away to just appreciate children, right? Because they're that next generation. And I think um I was watching. I started rewatching The Chosen just to get ready for season 4 to come out, and right away in episode 1,
Great
there's a
show.
whole
Got the
episode.
hat on.
Yeah. There's just there's that in the first few episodes, there's an episode dedicated solely to his interaction with the young children and just, being patient
Yes.
and watching them and, cause they're the future. And, I think that's just one thing that's been important for me, especially now with 2 young boys. And I know Evan, especially for you too, with having a young daughter, but it's just taking that time away from just to slow down and appreciate everything that you're, doing in that moment.
Yep.
Amen to that. I mean, so this
Mhm.
kind of takes us into our last question here. And so, in what ways does, camping traditions foster a sense of belonging, unity, mutual support among family members, and how does it impact your relationships outside of camping context?
Well, my camping experience has mostly been tied to very close family, except in the trip to Rochester, those are family members that are close, but I don't interact with all of them all the time. But most of my camping is with the people that very close family members. And so, like I said before about the campfire, it gives us an opportunity to get away from the hustle and bustle and distractions of the world and open up to each other and share things about what's going on in our lives that maybe we don't take the time to because we're so distracted. So it gives us a chance to connect about things in life that maybe we don't always connect about, even though we maybe see each other a lot. And I think that's the secret, I think, is once again, it gets back to our very first things that we said about getting away from distractions, getting connected to each other. And I think that's what ends up happening. We talk about stuff that we don't talk about otherwise. And then that builds a bond because you've opened up about something that you really wanted to share about. So I think that's really an important aspect of that.
Oh, I love that. That's really, really good. That just takes us to another one here with Psalm 127:3. It says, "Behold, the children are heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward from Him." I think that's a really good one.
Yep. And camping gives you the opportunity to spend time, precious, valuable, intentional time with them, and to pass on that heritage that you want to pass on to them, those important values that you want to pass on to them that you maybe don't take the opportunity of when you're in the middle of the hustle and bustle of life.
Oh, no, I couldn't agree more. And it's kind of funny as, Luke is the master of curating kind of our format for all of our podcasts. And when I heard the camping one right away, I really wasn't so sure because I'm a hunting, fishing nut, and I never really kind of thought actually kind of even more of a sense how camping in the community aspect, like you've talked about all this whole entire time, Ron, just how important that is. And, just fostering that relationships and those times you get to build with family and friends and just how important it is and just how it all ties back.
And I just, the thoughts are running through my head. This is really a special opportunity here to share, but the camping experiences that I've had, they've involved just wholesome time together. It wasn't a bunch of drinking and carousing and it wasn't a bunch of swearing, and it was just good, wholesome time together. And, we talked about the Lord, we prayed, but it was just the fact that it was done in such a way that it was wholesome, and I think that's just so special, when it comes to that activity typically.
Yeah. Well, Luke, you got any burning questions for Ron before he leads us in prayer here?
No, I think we can close it out here with a prayer if Ron, you want to take it away.
This is funny because I was told just before this that I was going to close in prayer, and Evan's dad is my fondest memory of him is he pulled a fast one at Evan's wedding. He got us all together, and we were gonna have a prayer. He says, "I think we should get together and have a prayer." And I thought that was a great idea. We all got together and we looked across. He looks over at me and he says, "Go ahead, Ron, start." And I just never forget that. But anyways, his son pulled a fast one on me. He told me I'm going to close in prayer. and I'd be honored to do so. Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity for us to be able to share the gifts that you gave us, both in experiences and looking at and observing your wonderful creation. You continue to bless us and show us your way and your presence in our lives through your creation and through our ability to interact with your environment. We just ask you to continue to bless us and to bless all those who take on the interaction with your environment through camping. Through your blessed Son, Jesus, amen.
Amen. Amen. Ron, what an awesome podcast.
I hope so.
We're extremely grateful that you took the time out of your day to sit out in the frigid weather with me and record this podcast. And
this is so cool. And like I said, I don't know, at the beginning, I just said, God works wonders and I never question him. Well, I do question him, but he brought me to this podcast and made me look over all of my past experiences that I probably hadn't been thinking about. And it's been a pleasure to go through and all my memories and then to share some of them with you tonight.
Well, awesome. Well, guys, thanks for listening again to the Wild Faith Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through faith and the great outdoors. We hope today's episode has inspired you to seek God's presence in the wilderness and deepen your connection with nature. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to the Wild Faith Podcast on your favorite platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. By subscribing, you'll never miss an episode, and you'll continue to be a part of the Wild Faith Podcast community. We'd also love to hear from our listeners, so please don't hesitate to reach out with your questions, comments, or topic suggestions. You can connect with us on social media or through our website. Your feedback is important to us and helps us improve and tailor our content to better serve you. And always remember, the great outdoors isn't just a playground for hunting and fishing. It's a sanctuary for finding solace and spiritual renewal. As you gear up for that next adventure, I pray you find God's presence in the crackling of a campfire, the thrill of reeling in your catch, or the quiet solitude found in nature. Until next time, thank you for listening to the Wild Faith Podcast. Take care, and God bless.